Welcome to the MeltDown. We're talking the business of sports with host Vince Thompson, the president, founder, and CEO of Melt, one of the leading sports marketing companies in the country.
Welcome back to the MeltDown. I'm Vince Thompson, founder, chairman, CEO of Melt, one of the largest sports marketing agencies in the country. Follow me at Vinny Inc. or at Vince Thompson on LinkedIn to learn about today's latest and greatest, what's melting down in the business of sports. Our topic today is the Pac-12 about to repack their lunch. For many years, many years, the Pac-12 has been one of the Power Five and one of the most vaunted college athletic conferences for many years. Great schools. My school, Auburn, happened to defeat Oregon in 2010 for our first or second national championship. But many years, USC, the vaunted Trojans, the Bruins of UCLA, and many more great teams. Coach Pete Carroll, remember the heyday of USC and the sidelines, and it really kind of brought Showtime to college football. It was an enjoyable time, obviously. Tons and tons of Heisman Trophy winners. Not many recent, and the granddaddy of them all, the Rose Bowl. But what's happened to them lately? Have they become irrelevant in football? Maybe in basketball across the country? When the Big Ten and the Pac-12 announced their cancellation of their seasons, there was barely a ripple. In the Big Ten, there was a ripple, but not from the Pac-12. And then obviously you see there's a lot of recriminations going on right now. Maybe they'll play. When Larry Scott was brought in as commissioner of the Pac-12 several years ago, he was heralded as a new wave of conference commissioners. He came from the tennis world, very successful career in the tennis world, great guy. But didn't have any experience in college athletics, but he did have a lot of experience in new media, social media. He spoke the language of Silicon Valley, and made a major bold decision, which I sat in on some early presentations with the Pac-12 network to some of my clients, and he decided to go it alone approach as opposed to the SEC network has a partner with ESPN. Big Ten has a partner with the cable operators and Fox, the distributors and all of that. And so it didn't really make a lot of sense to me because particularly back in the day, you got to remember this was not a multi-platform streaming era several years ago. Your success rose and fell with the cable distributors such as Comcast, such as Xfinity, such as Charter, and even the satellite providers, DirecTV and the Dish Network. And the interesting thing, and they touted it in their initial presentations, was, hey, we are very successful in Olympic sports, what they call the non-revenue sports, a lot of non-stick and ball sports, which, by the way, I love as well as anybody, but they don't drive giant ratings, which then, if you understand how ratings work, ratings are driven by eyeballs, and then the number of eyeballs that are recorded are then repackaged and sold to advertisers and sponsors who want to reach that target of those certain amount of eyeballs. And so as successful as Olympic sports are, and then obviously they come around every 2 or 4 years, and they're amazing dedicated athletes. We've talked a lot about them. We love them. They don't drive the primary revenue, both in the athletic departments or with television. Also, they touted it as a gateway into China because of the proximity of the conferences, the schools, to China. A lot of Asian children were attending schools on the Pac-12, so they kind of spun it sort of that way, and it actually made a lot of sense. And then early on, they did some exhibitions and some events over there, and that was pre all the things that are going on with China today. So strategically that made sense. I still wasn't quite sure I could figure out how that equated back to some of my advertisers or our clients or our sponsors or things of that nature, but it was a really positive selling point. And then they made a bet on, and they touted on their proximity to Silicon Valley, which made a lot of sense from some perspectives, putting individual networks on the campuses, having the latest and greatest technology, using it as a recruiting tool for the schools, both for the student athletes and their athletes. But to my knowledge, in my study and research, those relationships really haven't panned out per se from a sponsorship or distribution perspective. The Pac-12 schools, Stanford and those types of schools, are going to hire and recruit out of Silicon Valley whether or not they have a relationship with the Pac-12 network. But they built these beautiful facilities in San Francisco, and it was an impressive in it. And what Larry was talking about actually made sense. I just couldn't figure out how he's going to gain distribution, and obviously you see that hasn't panned out. The SEC network has 3, 4, 5 times the distribution. Big Ten network, 3, 4, 5 times the distribution network. ACC network, massive distribution. SEC, ACC owned and distributed by ESPN, and obviously we talked about Big Ten with Fox and some of the major cable operators. So when you add this layer of COVID uncertainty, which we've documented very well, it's well documented. It's well documented the financial devastation that's going to take place at every college athletic department in America. You're already seeing it: layoffs, furloughs, cuts, millions of dollars, halting construction on new buildings, which probably is not a bad thing. It was an arms race anyway. And the Pac-12 not playing any football. Some of those athletic departments I was just describing are actually playing football, and they're still undergoing all of this pressure and stress on their budgets and finances. So with all of that factored in, where does the Pac-12 and where does Commissioner Scott go now? The headlines are grim and they're bleak. Could the future of Larry Scott be in jeopardy? Payouts to schools are comically low compared to the SEC. I didn't make this up. You can see where they came from. And it sounds like the ADs have figured out how to live a pretty ritzy lifestyle. And look, I'm sure Larry is a great guy. I know he is. I've met him. But some of these salaries are going to come into serious question and serious jeopardy, particularly if this continues on for a while. Goodness knows we're trying to figure out the NCAA basketball equation right now, where the Pac-12 does have some successes and some great teams and great coaches on. But we don't know where this is going to go on, and there are a lot of rumors swirling that maybe it may be time for Commissioner Scott to move on based on the fact that Pac-12's television deals are up in just a handful of years. I think it's 23 or 24. And so the discussion is, does he preemptively move on prior to the negotiations, or do they have a hybrid approach? A friend of mine, Randy Freer, very, very hugely successful executive at Fox and other places, is rumored to be sort of circling. I don't know if that's in a consultant capacity or a co-partner to Commissioner Scott, or does Randy Freer take the job? And Randy Freer has run major television networks. He understands the maths of the deal. He understands the financing of the deal. He understands the other multimedia platforms. He understands maybe the start times need to be reconfigured a little bit. I know they talked about 9 o'clock start times on the West Coast, so they'll hit that noon slot and then move into prime time. I actually enjoyed watching Pac-12 football this year, but it was just so late. But some of the fun games are out there because they're kind of, the West Coast style offense and those types of things. And so Randy Freer, in my opinion, would be a major hire, a major get. And again, we got to step back. The Pac-12 is a valuable conference. They had a great Utah team this year, other great teams. You've got Phil Knight, major funder at Oregon, but Nike never made a giant commitment to the Pac-12 because they really didn't need to, because they already had the teams. And so I think they were banking on a lot of those things that are happening that didn't happen. So I would expect that Randy Freer would reconfigure pretty much dang near the whole thing, at least from a media perspective and a broadcast perspective. And this could be with where the Pac-12 is. This could be the first big strike of a social media platform such as Amazon or Facebook See Amazon starting to really get in the game. It's this newest Tottenham deal with the merch and everything tied into the games and the streaming and all of that. I would suspect, because this could be up, and the price could be right based on the jeopardy there now, or if Randy brings Fox back into the table. Obviously they've made a massive investment in college football and college sports as well. But one way or the other, obviously the Pac-12, great athletes, great students, great schools, vaunted brands and athletes. So we'll see where this goes. But in closing today, we ask, is the Pac-12 about to repack their lunch? And if so, lots of questions of what's going to go in that lunchbox. And in closing, as we said, follow me and us on social media at Vinny Inc. And don't forget the new book on personal branding for your students, for your family, for your friends, or if you're out of work in a brutal COVID job market. Build Brand New is about rebuilding and restructuring your personal brand. It'll be out in November, and we're going to have exciting pre-sale news out for you soon. I'm Vince Thompson, founder, chairman, CEO, and that's it for the Meltdown.
Follow us on Twitter and Instagram at MeltATL, and follow Vince at Vinny Inc. and on LinkedIn as Vince Thompson.